The unexpected answer. The great throne room of the alien palace was silent. The tall pillars shone with cold light, and the walls were covered with symbols of conquest. The alien queen sat on her black throne, her crown made of silver and glowing stones. Around her, dozens of alien guards stood still, their armor shining like steel. Everyone in the court was waiting for one moment: the arrival of the human prisoner. The heavy doors opened with a loud sound. Two alien soldiers pulled a man inside with iron chains on his hands. His clothes were torn, his face was tired, but his eyes were steady. This was the human prisoner. He was the only survivor from the destroyed colony ship. All the others were dead, but this one had refused to die. The aliens in the court whispered among themselves. "How is he still alive?" one asked. "He is weak. He will beg soon," another laughed. The queen raised her hand and silence fell again. She looked at the man with her sharp golden eyes. For her, humans were nothing more than insects, weak, fragile, and easy to break. But something in this man's calm stare made her feel a strange discomfort. She spoke in her deep, echoing voice. "Human, you stand in the heart of my empire. Your people are dust. Your world burns. Tell me, why should I let you live?" The court fell silent again. Everyone expected the human to fall to his knees, to beg for mercy, to cry and plead like the other prisoners had always done. But the man did not move. His chains rattled as he stood tall, looking directly at the queen. For a moment, no one breathed. Then the human spoke, his voice calm but strong. "You should let me live, because I am not afraid of you." The words cut through the throne room like a blade. The aliens gasped. The guards tightened their grips on their weapons. Never before had a prisoner spoken like this to the queen. She narrowed her eyes, leaning forward slightly. "Not afraid?" she repeated. "Your kind is broken. You are nothing here." But the man did not lower his gaze. "You think power is about chains, about thrones, about crowns. You think fear keeps people loyal, but fear is weakness, my people. We don't bow because of fear. We fight because we must. Even if we are the last one standing, we don't kneel." The queen's lips pressed together. No one had ever dared to lecture her inside her own court. She was used to screams, to obedience, to silence. But this human's words carried something she could not easily crush: conviction. The aliens around her whispered again. Some were angry. "Kill him now," shouted one guard. "He insults the queen," cried another. But the queen raised her hand and silence returned. She stared at the man carefully, her sharp mind trying to read him. Was this madness? Or courage? Why did his simple words feel heavier than all the weapons in her palace? "You believe your words give you strength?" she said slowly. The man smiled faintly, though his lips were cracked from thirst. "No, my strength is not in words. My strength is in knowing that no matter what you do, you cannot break me. You can kill me, but you cannot own me." The queen leaned back in her throne, her golden eyes watching him closely. For the first time in many years, she felt something unusual: uncertainty. The court around her was restless, waiting for her to crush the human with one order. But she did not speak. She simply stared. The silence stretched long and heavy. The alien guards shifted nervously. They were waiting for the queen's judgment. But deep inside her, a strange thought rose. What if this human is different? Finally, she spoke again, her voice calm but sharp as a blade. "Very well, human. You will live for now. I want to see if your courage is truth or illusion." The court exploded with whispers. No one could believe what they had heard. The queen had spared a human, not out of pity but out of curiosity. The guards pulled the prisoner back, dragging him toward the dark cells of the palace. But as he walked away, the man turned his head slightly and looked once more at the queen. His eyes carried no fear, only defiance. For the first time in her long reign, the alien queen felt her heart stir with a question she had never asked before. Could a human truly stand against an empire? The answer was unknown, but the seed of doubt had been planted. And in that silence, the queen realized something dangerous. The unexpected answer of one human had shaken her throne more than an entire army ever had. Whispers in the court. The throne room emptied slowly after the human was dragged away. The alien queen remained seated on her throne, her golden eyes fixed on the doors that had closed behind him. The sound of his words still echoed in her mind. "You cannot break me." Her court was restless. The nobles and generals of her empire gathered in the side chambers, whispering like shadows. They had never seen their queen hesitate before. They had never seen her spare a prisoner who insulted her in front of everyone. In one corner, General Carvox hissed angrily to another officer, "This is weakness. If she lets this human live, others will think she is losing control." A priest of the old faith leaned forward, his voice low but sharp. "Or perhaps the human carries something more dangerous than a weapon. Words can poison. Fear can spread. If his courage infects others, even the queen may find rebellion." The whispers grew darker with every passing moment. The courtiers debated not only the prisoner but also the queen herself. Some feared her curiosity would lead to ruin. Others believed she had a hidden plan. No one truly knew the reason behind her silence. Meanwhile, in the deep prison cells, the human sat quietly on the cold stone floor. His hand still bore the weight of chains, but his mind was free. The guards mocked him, throwing scraps of food at his feet. Yet he did not lower his head. He looked at them with the same calm defiance he had shown the queen. One young alien guard, braver than the rest, finally asked, "Why do you not beg? Do you not know that no one escapes this place alive?" The man's lips curved into a tired smile. "Do you know what fear looks like to me?" he asked softly. "It looks like your eyes when you look at me. You fear me more than I fear you." The guard froze. His hands trembled, though he quickly covered his fear with anger. He slammed the bars shut and left, but his heart was unsettled. Even in chains, the human's words had power. Back in the palace, the queen dismissed her court and walked into her private chamber. The silence was heavy around her, but her mind was louder than ever. She had ruled for decades without challenge, her will unshaken, her voice unquestioned. Yet today, one man, fragile, mortal, powerless, had spoken in a way no alien ever dared. Why had his words mattered? Why had she spared him? She touched her crown, the symbol of her absolute power. For the first time, it felt heavier than it should. The next morning, the queen secretly ordered her spy master to observe the prisoner. She wanted to know how he acted when no one was watching. Was his courage only for show, or was it real? The reports returned quickly. The human did not weep. He did not curse. He did not plead. He spoke little, but when he did, his words unsettled the guards. He told them about humanity, about how fragile bones could still hold unshakable will, about how even in death, humans carried defiance. Every report only deepened the queen's unease. Whispers spread beyond the palace walls. Soldiers in the barracks began to talk about the strange human who had defied the queen. Servants repeated the story in the kitchens, their voices hushed but eager. Even merchants in the streets began to wonder, what kind of creature could stand tall before the golden eyes of the queen? Fear turned into curiosity, and curiosity turned into quiet admiration. The queen noticed the shift. Her court grew restless again. Generals demanded the human's execution. Priests declared him a danger to the empire. But in the quiet moments when the queen was alone, she found herself thinking about his words again and again. "You can kill me, but you cannot own me." One night, as the stars burned cold in the sky, the queen returned to the dungeons herself. She ordered the guards to leave and stood before the human cell. He rose slowly from the ground, chains rattling, and looked at her without fear. "You," she said in a low voice, "you dare to speak as if you are greater than an empire." The man tilted his head slightly. "No," he answered calmly. "I speak as if I am greater than fear. That is something your empire does not understand." The queen's golden eyes narrowed, but inside her chest her heart gave a strange beat. She should have struck him down. She should have silenced him forever. Yet instead she whispered almost to herself, "Why does your defiance disturb me so?" The human smiled faintly. "Because somewhere inside you, you know it is the truth." For a long moment silence filled the cold dungeon. The queen did not reply. She only turned and walked away, her long cloak sweeping the floor. But in her mind a storm had begun. She had faced armies, assassins and traitors, yet none had shaken her as much as the chained human with nothing but words. And deep in the palace the whispers grew louder. The empire did not know it yet, but something had changed. A single human's unexpected courage was beginning to crack the walls of an empire built on fear. The human's strength. The days passed inside the alien palace, but the whispers about the human did not stop. Every soldier, servant, and noble had heard the story, how a chained prisoner had dared to speak to the queen without fear. Some laughed at it, others feared it, but no one could ignore it. The queen herself grew restless. Every night she remembered his words. Every morning she asked herself why she had not ordered his execution. She was a ruler of countless worlds, yet one fragile human kept her thoughts chained tighter than his wrists. Finally, she made a decision. She ordered the human to be brought before her, not in the throne room but in her private hall, away from the eyes of the court. She wanted to face him alone. The guards dragged the man in, chains clattering against the floor. He looked tired but not broken. His eyes still carried that same sharp fire. When he stood before her, she dismissed the guards with a wave of her hand. The heavy doors closed and silence filled the chamber. The queen rose from her seat, her tall figure looming over him. "You are bold, human," she said slowly. "But boldness can be foolish. Do you not understand that I could end your life in one word?" The man looked at her calmly. "Yes," he replied. "But that is not power. That is fear. True power is when you do not need to kill to prove yourself." The queen froze for a second. No one had ever dared to tell her such words. For her, power had always been measured in obedience and conquest, but this human was redefining it. She stepped closer, her golden eyes narrowing. "Then tell me, what is strength to you?" The man lifted his chained hand slightly. "Strength is not in these chains. Strength is when your body is broken, but your spirit refuses to bow. My people may bleed, we may fall, but even in our last breath we resist." The queen's heart gave a strange beat again. His words felt heavier than any weapon. She tried to laugh, but her voice came out quieter than she expected. "You speak like your kind are warriors, yet your people are weak compared to mine. You lose every battle." The man smiled faintly. "Maybe, but we do not measure victory the way you do. For us, victory is not surviving. Victory is making sure our enemy never forgets we fought." The queen stared at him in silence. She had fought hundreds of wars, conquered dozens of planets, and enslaved countless species. But never had she met someone who accepted death without fear, someone who believed resistance itself was a form of triumph. That night, she could not sleep. His words circled in her mind like restless ghosts. She walked alone through the palace halls, her cloak trailing behind her. For the first time, doubt crept into her heart, not about her empire, but about herself. Meanwhile, in the dark dungeons, the human's reputation grew. Guards who once mocked him now avoided his gaze. One of them even admitted to another, "I would rather face 10 armed rebels than stand 1 hour in his presence. His silence is heavier than their screams." Even in chains, the human's strength was spreading. It was not strength of weapons, not strength of armies, but strength of spirit. Soon a test came. One morning, during a council meeting, an assassin disguised as a servant struck inside the palace. A blade flashed, aimed at the queen's heart. The guards were slow, too far to act. But before the blade could touch her, a voice rang out from the side. "Behind you." It was the human. Even with chains on his arms, he moved, knocking the assassin off balance. The weapon missed its mark, only scratching the queen's shoulder instead of piercing her chest. Guards rushed in and killed the attacker instantly, but the queen's eyes were not on them. They were on the human. He stood tall, his chains dripping with blood where he had struck the assassin. His face was calm, not desperate. He had not tried to escape in the chaos. He had saved her instead. The court gasped. The queen's generals stared in disbelief. A human prisoner had protected their ruler when none of them had. The queen touched the cut on her shoulder. It stung, but her thoughts were not on the wound. They were on the man before her, the man who could have run but chose to act differently. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "Why? Why save me?" The human's answer came without hesitation. "Because even enemies deserve truth, and the truth is, you are worth more alive than dead. For now." His words struck her deeper than the assassin's blade. That night, as the palace trembled with rumors of betrayal, the queen stood alone in her chamber, looking at the stars outside her window. The galaxy was vast, filled with conquered worlds, yet her thoughts were chained to one thing, the human prisoner whose spirit could not be broken, whose strength came not from weapons but from something greater. And for the first time in her reign, the alien queen felt both fear and fascination at the same time. The dangerous revelation: the palace had become a cage of whispers. After the assassination attempt, fear spread through every hall and chamber. Nobles blamed each other. Generals shouted in anger, and priests spoke of omens. The alien queen, however, remained silent. Her wound was small, but her pride had suffered more than her flesh. She could not stop thinking about one thing. The human had saved her life. Not her generals, not her loyal guards, not her spies. A chained prisoner, an enemy, a man with nothing left to lose. But deep inside, she knew the truth. The assassin had not acted alone. That night, she summoned her spy master. His skin was pale, his eyes sharp as knives. He bowed low before her. "Your Majesty, the assassin was a servant, but he belonged to no known clan. We searched his quarters. We found a symbol hidden beneath his clothes." He handed her a piece of cloth with a dark mark burned into it, a circle split by a jagged line. The queen's eyes narrowed. "The mark of Drax," she whispered. The spy master nodded. "Yes, the secret cult. They believe your empire is corrupted, that your throne must fall. And now, they have found courage to strike here inside your walls." The queen's golden eyes turned to fire. For years she had heard rumors of this cult but dismissed them as foolish rebels hiding in the shadows. But now they had grown bold enough to enter her palace. Yet one question cut deeper than all the others. How had the human seen the assassin when none of her guards had? She returned to the dungeons, walking alone with only the sound of her cloak dragging across the floor. The human rose to his feet as she appeared, his chains rattling. "You," she said sharply. "How did you know? You warned me before anyone else. How?" The man's face was calm, his eyes steady. "I have lived through betrayal before." The way he moved, the way his eyes followed you, it was not service. It was death waiting to strike. "I have seen it too many times." The queen studied him carefully. His words were not lies. She could feel it. But there was something more. A knowledge, an instinct her soldiers did not have. "You have the eyes of a warrior," she said slowly. The man gave a faint smile. "No, I have the eyes of a survivor." Days passed and the court grew restless. The cult's shadow spread wider. Murders were reported in the lower districts, symbols carved into the walls. Generals demanded mass executions. Priests demanded sacrifices, but none of their plans stopped the fear. The queen decided to test the human further. She ordered him taken from his cell and brought to the council chamber. The generals sneered at the sight of him bound in chains, but the queen silenced them with a glance. She placed the burned cloth with the cult's symbol in front of him. "Tell me what you see." The human looked at it for a long moment. Then he said quietly, "This is not just a mark. This is a message. They are not afraid of you anymore." The generals erupted in anger. "Lies," one shouted. "He seeks to weaken us. Kill him now before his poison spreads," cried another. But the queen raised her hand, her eyes locked on the human. "And why should I believe you?" she asked. The man met her gaze without fear. "Because I have seen this before. On my world, before it fell, enemies marked our cities with signs like this. Not to warn us, but to tell each other, the time has come." The queen's golden eyes hardened. His words carried weight, and deep in her heart she knew they were true. That night another attempt was made. Not on the queen this time, but on her council. 3 nobles were found dead, their throats cut, the mark of the cult burned into their skin. The palace was in chaos. Guards searched every hall, but the killers vanished like smoke. The queen stood on her balcony, looking at the fires of her capital burning in the distance. She clenched her fists, her crown heavy on her head. For the first time in her reign, she felt the ground beneath her throne begin to crack. And in the darkness of her mind, one truth returned again and again. The human had seen what her people could not. She went to him once more. This time there was no anger in her voice, only quiet strength. "You saved me once. You spoke the truth when others lied. Tell me, human, what would you do if this empire were yours?" The man lifted his head slowly. His eyes were steady, but there was something dangerous in them now. "I would burn the fear out of it. I would teach them what strength really is. Not chains, not crowns, but freedom." The queen's heart stopped for a moment. His words were bold, too bold. He was still her prisoner, still her enemy, and yet part of her could not deny the fire in his voice. For the first time, the alien queen wondered if her greatest danger was not the cult hiding in the shadows, but the human standing in chains before her. The shift of power. The palace was no longer a place of safety. Every corridor echoed with whispers of fear. Every shadow seemed to hide an assassin. The cult's mark appeared daily on the walls of the capital, painted in blood, carved into stone, burned into doors. The empire trembled, and even the most loyal generals began to doubt the queen's strength. but the human prisoner remained calm. Chained, bruised, yet unbroken, he had become the silent center of the storm. Guards avoided his gaze now, afraid of the quiet power in his eyes. Some even whispered that his words carried more weight than the Queen's commands. The Queen felt it too. Every time she saw him, she felt the strange pull of his presence. He was no longer just a captive. He had become a mirror, showing her the weakness of her empire and of herself. One night, the Queen called for a secret council. Only her most trusted generals, priests, and nobles were invited. The human was brought in as well, still in chains, his steps echoing against the stone floor. The Queen stood before them, her golden crown gleaming under the torchlight. "The cult grows stronger," she declared. "They strike in the heart of our empire. My throne itself is under shadow. We must decide how to answer." The generals pounded their fists on the table. "Kill them all!" shouted General Carbox. "Burn their homes, purge their families. Fear is the only answer." The priest hissed in agreement. "Blood must answer blood." The Queen's eyes slid toward the human. "And what do you say, prisoner?" The council erupted in outrage. "You ask him?" One noble spat. "He is nothing," another shouted. But the Queen silenced them with a single glance. The man looked at her calmly, then at the furious faces around him. His voice was quiet but strong. "Fear is not the answer. Fear is why they rise against you. You crush them, they return stronger. You silence them, they speak louder. You kill one, 10 more take his place. Fear is a disease, and your empire is sick with it." The council shouted again, demanding his death, but the Queen raised her hand. Her eyes locked with his, and for the first time her heart whispered something she had never allowed before. Perhaps he is right. That night she could not sleep. She walked alone through the palace, her crown heavy on her head. The cult hunted her, her council doubted her, her empire trembled, and yet the voice that haunted her most was not her enemies, but the humans. The next morning, chaos erupted. The cult had attacked the palace gates. Explosions shook the walls and fire lit the sky. Soldiers rushed to defend, but traitors inside the palace opened doors for the enemy. The Queen's empire was crumbling before her eyes. The human was still in chains when the guards dragged him into the throne room, desperate for orders. The Queen stood on the steps of her throne, her blade drawn, her eyes burning with fury. For the first time, she asked him not as a prisoner, but as an equal. "What do I do, human?" The court gasped. To ask an enemy for counsel was unthinkable. But the Queen no longer cared for tradition. She cared only for survival. The man's eyes burned with quiet fire. "You cannot fight shadows with fear. To kill them, you must kill what gives them strength. Your throne of fear itself." The Queen froze. His words were like a blade in her heart. To save her empire, she would need to change everything. To save her throne, she might have to destroy the very way she ruled. Outside, the sound of battle grew louder. The gates shook. The cult was coming. At that moment, the Queen made her choice. She ordered the chains cut from the human's wrists. The guards hesitated, shocked, but her voice was sharp as steel. "Free him now!" The chains fell to the ground with a heavy clang. The man stood tall, rubbing the bruises on his wrists, his eyes never leaving hers. For the first time, he was no longer a prisoner. The court erupted in chaos. "This is madness!" shouted a general. "You will doom us all," cried a priest, but the Queen silenced them with a roar. "No, for the first time we will fight with truth, not fear, and he will stand beside me." The human stepped forward, his voice strong. "Then know this, if I fight not for your crown, not for your empire. I fight for the chance to show your people there is another way." The Queen stared at him, her golden eyes glowing with both anger and strange respect. For the first time, she felt something she had never allowed herself to feel: hope. As the palace shook under the attack, the two of them stood side by side, the alien queen and the human she once called a captive. The battle outside was fierce, but the greater war was inside the throne room. In the choice she had just made, for better or worse, power had shifted. And as the gates crashed open and the cult stormed in, the Queen realized one truth that would change her forever. Her empire's future no longer rested on her crown, but on the man who once stood in chains.